So clearly, I know where the Russians have placed their infantry and their tanks, um, but for the sake of the learning experience, I'm just going to act as though I'm acting without any knowledge of any of this, right? So I've moved here. I can still, I've only moved half of my distance, which means that I rate a hold fire marker by these tanks. So all that means is that I did not shoot in my shooting phase, but if the Russian player decides to move and shoot in his turn, I can then return fire as if all of that occurred concurrently. This game does a pretty good job at making sure everything acts concurrently, as if tanks are moving at the same time, they're all firing at the same time, so you can coordinate with that. So you put these little blue markers, meaning they could have shot because they only moved up to half the distance they could have, but they did not. So moving forward to the Russians' turn, at this time I don't really want to unmask, whether by moving or by shooting. Either these tanks located here in this tree line or these teams located here in the tree line, they're still concealed. And so I'm just going to cede my time back to the German player. So once again, I've got a movement of 7. Move him up along here. Move him there. Move him there. And move him there. Move him here. At the time, I'm just moving these platoons up along the road. And then the Russian player decides, you know what, I think he's pretty close. I think that he's within my close range to shoot. At this time, I'm going to attempt an overwatch fire while this player is still moving. The thing with overwatch fire is that even though these tanks didn't shoot for this turn, they cannot respond to overwatch fire when they're moving. So these 3 tanks, see if I can kind of slide this up along here to help us all see a little bit better. So I've got my eye on these 3 T-34s located up here in the tree line. So the thing with Fistful of Toes is that anytime you measure, that is as if the tank or unit has already shot. There is no pre-measuring in this game. So normally in the rules, and this is a personal rule, something that I found fitting. You can choose to do it. You can choose not to. Normally, Overwatch gets a -1 modifier to the 2 hit because of a moving target. However, because these tanks are all in a defense and they're all oriented down this road, I find it fitting that because they're shooting at the front arc, it's probably easier to shoot at those tanks because they're not moving perpendicular but parallel to their gun target line. And so because I'm shooting at the front arc, I'm not going to apply that modifier to these tanks. So I declare my shots before I roll any dice. I'm declaring this T-34 will shoot at the lead Vic, second T-34 will shoot at the second Vic, and then the third T-34 will shoot at the third Vic. Each T-34 has a rate of fire of 2, and because we've multiplied their range by 4, originally it was 10, but now the range is 40. Now, if a vehicle is within half of that range, you get a +1 to hit and a +2 to your penetration. So what that means is as long as these tanks are within 20 inches of the tanks that are shooting at them, they receive that bonus. So let's figure that out right now. So just looking at this, every single one of these are within the 20-inch arc. So, as I said before, Each T-34 has a rate of fire of 2, meaning they can roll 2 dice for each of these tanks. So let's go with first the lead Vic. I'm needing, because it's a +1 modifier, originally the T-34 would need a 5+, but because of the +1, I only need a 4 to hit. So that is 1 hit on the lead tank, 1 hit on the second tank, and 2 hits on the third tank. None of these tanks are in cover, and so they do not get any terrain saves. Now it's time to do a little bit of math. So looking at our data sheet here, the penetration potential for the T-34 is 5, but because they're at close range, they have a +2 modifier, which means that the penetration of the T-34 is now a 7. The frontal armor of the Panzer III is 4. So how we do this is we have the penetration minus the frontal armor, which equals 3, and that's the number of dice you get to roll for each hit. So 3 dice, and because this hit twice, that's 6 dice. The most die you can roll is 10, just so there's not a ridiculous amount in the event of some of these engagements. So we'll roll first for the front tank. That's a 5. So 1 hit. I should also mention, in these hits, a 4 or a 5 means that the tank was hit and it needs to have a quality check. If a 6 is rolled, that tank is automatically destroyed. So this tank gets a quality check. We'll roll 3 die for the second tank. This tank also gets a quality check. And then we'll roll 6 die for the third tank. 2 6s, the tank is destroyed. Take these die away. So now what we do is, because looking at our data sheet, I don't think I mentioned this previously, how I've rated these forces. Looking at kind of just the historicals in 1941, I rated the Russians as fair, meaning that they have to roll a 6+ as a quality check to pass, and they also have a 5+ to hit. With the Germans, I've rated the Panzer Grenadiers as excellent troops, meaning they have a quality check of 3+ and a 2 hit of 3+, and they get a +1 to their rate of fire. And the regular Germans have a quality check of 4+ and a hit of 3+, and no modifier to their rate of fire. So with these tanks need to roll a 4+ to win their quality check, and if they don't, that means any plethora of things, whether that's the crew abandoned their tank, there's some mechanical failure that the crew wasn't able to fix, or anything like that, whatever your imagination wants to come up with. So with the lead tank, roll the 4, so they passed. The second tank, roll the 1, so they failed. So that tank, we'll just mark that as either bailed out or destroyed. Either way, that tank is unusable. Now with this lead tank, because it was hit, but it passed its quality check, what we do is we put a little marker here. I have yellow. It may be backwards in the rules, but I have yellow for direct fire suppression, meaning that the tank can move at half of its rate, and when it tries to engage, it has a -1 modifier to the 2 hit. And this will remain until the enemy's next turn.